Good morning, Mr. Kirschner. How are you?
Okay, Jody. How are you?
I am doing well. There's not anything really legal to talk about, so let's just, what are you doing for the weekend?
Yeah. The justice God's giveth and the justice God's taketh away.
Exactly. Earlier this week, I was like super happy with some of the rulings, and now they just rug out from under.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me. Your feelings?
We have a corrupt, compromised, and I think we can add callous Supreme Court, at least, that conservative bloc who, are determined to knock people down. First, when they revoked women's constitutional privacy rights, it's pretty clear that they were trying to put women in their place, right? Now, by killing affirmative action, they're trying to put minorities in their place. And the irony, and that's too weak a word for it, the irony of somebody like Clarence Thomas, who admitted benefiting from affirmative action programs, only to deny those same programs to others. It's not about equal outcomes in this country. It's about equality of opportunity. And that's what affirmative action provided for folks who were historically disadvantaged. And it's appalling, but what I hope it will do is re-energize us all to get out in numbers even bigger than we were already, going to turn out in as a result of women's constitutional privacy rights being revoked. You know what? They're going to be their own worst enemies at the end of the day, because if we can get numbers in Congress that allow us to address these democracy killing issues and raise the number of Supreme Court justices as but one remedy to what we're experiencing now, then you know what? We're going to win at the end of the day.
I agree. I think that Victor Shi, who is on this show as often as we can get him on, he basically said, now you woke up us again. Now we're more awake again. Right. I mean, with the Dobbs decision, waking up women that weren't necessarily going to vote for Democrats, they're not telling their husbands now whether or not they're, it's and it's unfortunate that it had to be something like these two particular things. And what are we waiting for? 7:00 Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern, more decisions? Student loan debt. Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Oh, and there's an LGBT issue about a website in Colorado.
Did they rule on that yet?
No.
Case.
But the information came out that the case, it's based on fake.
Yeah, that was that. Did you hear this, Glenn? That the LGBTQ case based on the falsified claim of a same-sex wedding, that the person that they claimed tried to get a website designed said he never tried to do that, and that was part of the case.
Well, they don't really need a litigant who has an actual dog in the fight, because we have all these stupid sham litigants. I mean, just look at the caption, the name of the case that they just used to knock down affirmative action: Students for Fair Admissions versus Harvard. That right there is a scam. It's a sham. It's nonsense. It's nefarious litigants, Jody, trying to bubble up issues to the Supreme Court under false pretenses to try to take away some of our rights. And they're going to do it in the LGBTQ arena, I predict, just as sure as we're sitting here. They're going to take and take and take. They're going to knock people down. They're going to marginalize them. And F them. We're going to rise up, all of us together, and we're going to fix this. We have to fix this.
We do. I agree. And regarding the voting rights, the Moore case this week, which was a good outcome, what are your feelings on what Texas is trying to do in the Houston area, and then Georgia with being able to overturn the rule of the voters? Will that case supersede those laws or not? Because they're state laws, so...
Yeah, we got a little bit of a silver lining when they said this ridiculous notion of the independent state legislatures being able to declare, oh, wait a minute, the popular vote went to one candidate. We don't like that. We're just going to say the other candidate won, and the courts can't review that. Even that was a bridge too far for the Supreme Court. But let's not give the Supreme Court credit for doing the right thing for the right reason. They're all about protecting their own interest and influence. And the last thing they want to do is start putting legal issues beyond the reach of courts generally. I actually have maintained, Jody, all along that one of the reasons the Supreme Court has not done Donald Trump any favors in his quest to unlawfully retain power is because if they gave him the green light to become a dictator, you know what dictators have no use for? A Supreme Court.
Right. Exactly.
So they will always be motivated, the Supreme Court, by retaining their own power, regardless of the merits of any particular issue. So I think we're going to see them continuing to protect the courts, even if it happens to protect minority voting rights, which I don't think motivates the Supreme Court at all.
I agree. I mean, and they also voted on the religious thing. There it is. The postal worker who didn't want to work on Sundays, and it was a unanimous ruling, which is interesting to me. It clarified the 77 court ruling, TWA versus Hardison, that employers are not required to make accommodations if it would impose even a minimal or using de minimis burden. So, I mean, when I heard this case initially, I was like, come on, man. It seemed like he was asking a lot for a very small post office, but they obviously ruled in his favor, which I'm not sure I'm for. I'm not sure where I sit on this one.
So here's where I sit on this one. I want everyone's right to practice their religion protected.
Absolutely.
But the Supreme Court is willing to protect religious rights. They're willing to protect gun rights, but they're unwilling to protect women's rights and minority rights. I know that sounds simplistic, but when you kind of cull everything else away, that's what they're doing. And that's why, we hear over and over again, look, they're just trying to create a white Christian theocracy.
Right.
And I think many of their decisions sort of fit that narrative.
I agree. I mean, for me, I know that there are some women that are suing under the First Amendment against Dobbs, because as far as I'm concerned, that was a religious decision and not a scientific decision or a medical decision on the Supreme Court. So I love these women for trying to get it up there on the basis of the First Amendment.
I agree. And if the Supreme Court was consistent in its jurisprudence, that might work.
Right.
But do we have any expectation they're going to be consistent? I don't.
Well, that's what the ERA should hopefully fix is that, because then you would be discriminating on the basis of sex by virtue of not being able to get medical care. And that's my other concern with the affirmative action thing. I don't think they're going to stop at just conditions of race in schools. I think they're going to go for employers. There's going to be lawsuits to me for private employment diversity and all that sort of stuff. And then it'll go to women, LGBTQ, all of that stuff under the Civil Rights Act. So that's my concern with this particular decision.
And wasn't separate but equal education a whole lot easier and better for so many reasons? You really don't think they're ever going to revisit Brown versus Board of Education? I hope not. I hope that's me being hyperbolic, but I have no confidence in the Supreme Court. When law and morality are both at issue, they don't seem to give one whit about morality.